Hello, Culture Matters podcast. Boy, am I excited to introduce you to our guest. Before I do that, here's a quote just for this episode. If your ego is driving you, you're not going to learn from reality. Skye Michiels. Our guest today is an OG of the Culture Matters podcast. I was re-listening to our first episode again, dropped that wisdom on the last one, that quote right there, episode 23, season 2 of the Culture Matters podcast. Started out as a social studies teacher, never stopped considering he's been teaching and advising and mentoring, and now for over 20 years, over 20 years, 19 years, almost 20 years
Yeah.
in the real estate industry, head of national development Compass, a company that's grown astronomically. Skye's one of the leaders in that company and head of coaching, and a good friend of the Culture Matters podcast, and a supporter of Culture Matters. So I'm so excited to have you back on the show and quote you. I was re-listening to our last podcast for the listeners. If you haven't heard episode 23, we're in the hundreds and hundreds now. Go check that out after this conversation. Thanks for coming back, Skye.
It's an absolute thrill to be on. It's absolute thrill to watch you continue to grow too. And I remember meeting you years and years ago here in Philadelphia and watching you now to become what you are. It's just an absolute honor and a pleasure, and I'm humbled to be on. And I'll shorten that quote up. Nowadays, what I say is ego is the enemy.
There you go.
Nice and short and quick. And if your ego is driving you, you're operating in enemy territory. So
why do you think that is?
I think we're driven. If you look at today's culture and society and just everyday life, right? This little device that we all carry, and I'm holding up my cell phone for anyone listening, this little device that we carry with us is designed to drive our ego, right? It's designed to make us unhappy, because when we are unhappy, when we're not feeling good, that's when we're purchasing things. And let's be real, as great as we all love our cell phones, these cell phones are devices that are literally designed to make us unhappy. And I think when we're unhappy, that's when our ego steps in to try to protect us, right? And it tries to protect us by doing things that are really not, beneficial to us, right? So anytime you're out there and anytime you feel your ego is stepping up, if you're using words like "you're disrespecting me," or you're offending me, or if all these things that are generated, right, to amp up the energy in our society and our world, really just to sell stuff, whether it's sell ads, whether it's to sell, keep people's attention, or sell clicks on TikTok or Instagram or whatever it might be. There's a reason those TikTok and Instagram are so addictive. That's because they're trying to sell us stuff, and you really need to battle your ego. And AKA the cell phone feeds your ego. So I know that was deep to start out with, but I'm really adamant about controlling your cell phone, because if you're connected to your cell phone, you are disconnected from yourself.
What are some ways that you navigate and manage that? And I ask because and I can shout out the 6 a.m.er club, thousands of people are part of that. That's through these social platforms. So as someone that influences through the platforms, how do you balance that?
Yeah, it's a great question. Step one starts in the evening. Most people, I would probably argue 95%, maybe 99% of the population that owns a cell phone most likely sleeps with it right next to their head. So step one in controlling the cell phone is to actually sleep with it at the minimum across the room, or at best in another room even from you. Because the reality is, now, if you're a parent out there and you have kids maybe who are at college, or, like me, I'm a divorced parent, a happily divorced parent. We can get into that.
Congratulations.
Thanks, man. We have a beautiful divorce, and I'm very proud of my divorce. But me having my phone in my room is a little bit of a comfort, because if there was an emergency with my kids, I do want it to ring and go off. But what I don't need it is those moments when I randomly wake up at 2 a.m. and I reach over, grab it, and immediately I'm in social media, text, email, whatever it might be. Or the first thing I do when I wake up and I shut off the alarm is I grab it and I start scrolling, right? And most people, that's what they do. They wake up and the very first thing they do is I call it the three-headed devil. They enter the three-headed devil, and The three-headed devil is text, social media, email, right? The first thing most people do when they wake up is not meditate, not work out, not read, not, talk to their partner or their spouse, not eat, make good, healthy food. The first thing they do is they pick up the cell phone and they go email, text, social media, or one of those combinations. And that's your first step in really connecting with yourself, is controlling your cell phone usage at night and in the morning. And it is as simple as taking it off your bedstand and putting it at the very minimum across the room.
What do you have any recommendations on what to do after that?
Yeah.
Meaning, because all right, that's done. Now I've taken my legs off and they're over
Yeah.
there,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm
Walk
not yet
across the
asleep.
room. You shut the
I'm
alarm.
not. I'm not yet asleep. What do I do with myself?
Yeah. Well, this is the beauty, right? There's so many options right now that imagine, and the fun thing to do is it really doesn't take us, we don't need to imagine 100 years ago or 500. We really just need to imagine 20 years ago,
Yeah.
5 years ago, 25 years ago, when you went to bed, what did you do? You read a book. You maybe meditated. You didn't go on your cell phone because it didn't
Wasn't
exist.
even there.
Wasn't even there. So the ironic thing is that we don't need to go really far back to imagine what to do at night. But the key, if anyone on this call is really trying to be healthy in the morning, your morning actually begins in the evening. And your evening routine sets up your morning routine. So the things that you can do are endless in the evening. My personal thing that I love to do is try as hard as I can. If my bedtime is 10:30 or 11, whatever your bedtime is, 30 minutes before bedtime, just no cell phone. Like, that gets plugged in, it's off, I have an alarm set, etc. What can I do at that point? At that point, I could fold laundry. I could read a book. I could get my gym clothes ready for the next day. I could do some stretching. I could meditate. I could have a conversation with my partner. I could daydream about tomorrow. Right? I mean, it's endless what you could do. But the great thing is everything you do when you don't have your cell phone is all about you. And this is a concept, Jay, that I developed. I call it being healthy selfish. Right? It's so critical for everyone on this call to become selfish about your health. And when you think about a world where anything you want to accomplish really just comes back to the self, to you. But what we need to do is we need to become selfish about that, right? That there's nothing more important than me being connected to myself.
You consider that prioritizing?
Number one priority. And I know for any parent on the call, like or a husband or wife or spouse or partner, sometimes you're like, well, my kids are my number one priority. And this is going to sound really, really, this might sound hard for people to hear, but I actually am my number one priority, because if I'm not taking care of myself, I can't show up to my kids in a very powerful way. I'm depleted. Do you know what I mean? And this is not saying, obviously, make your kids one of your, probably it's your equal priority, right?
It's the new book, Kids Eat Last.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. I like it. But you get my point, right? Like, how many parents on this call right now are feeling so depleted that when they pick up their kids from school, they are so depleted, all they say is, here, go on your cell phone.
Or yell at them.
Or yell at them, or snap at them, or, right, instead, I pick up my kids, whew, I'm here, I'm present, I'm healthy, we're doing stuff, we're active, etc. So I think it's this thing that in our society we have created this world sometimes where taking care of yourself is actually frowned upon in many ways. But we need to really shift that mindset, as taking care of yourself is one of your top priorities, if not the top priority. So
last time we recorded, pre-pandemic, shout out episode 23. It was January, a few months later. What did you see the biggest shift? Because right, we've been in different places, haven't seen each other in a while. What have you seen?
So powerful. Such a great question, and actually something that is probably the number one focus in my professional world right now. The number one thing I saw is we became disconnected as human beings. We got used to this, right? And there's positives, right? We got
Yeah.
used to Zoom calls. We got used to text messages. We got used to feeling like, oh, well, I emailed that person. I communicated with them. You didn't communicate with them. Communication is an exchange. And I see these words, exchanging information back and forth. Emailing is just shoving information at someone, hoping a shred of it gets through. Let's be real. How many emails, Jay, do you get in a day? Like,
It's growing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Especially as you do this.
I got an email this year, and that's been helpful, but
There
also.
you go. It's going to continue to grow.
Yeah, so I said to somebody, "Well, I don't." Oh, my attorney. I said, "I don't give my email ads because, well, you email somebody, what happens? They get it,
Get it back. Exactly. You increase
it's growing." Yeah, and the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's crazy. But I think that's the biggest thing that the pandemic, created. It created this disconnect between human beings. And everything that I do professionally now is really driving home the basics of what we do as an industry in real estate, for example, or any service-based industry. We just need to rehumanize our business, to reconnect as human beings. If you are like, oh, I'm going to email this person, I challenge you right now. How can you actually meet the person face to face, or pick up the phone and instead of an email, a phone call?
Do you see people actually doing that, meeting face to face?
That is what
Is that back?
I just launched, and not just me, but Compass. We just launched something called the Back to Basics Challenge. And the Back to Basics Challenge, in essence, is a contest of every Compass agent. And we're using our internal technology and CRM to track which agents are having the most in-person connections with their clients, their sphere, the people they know, the people they don't know even, right? And we have over 1,000 prizes that we're giving away over the first 100 days. So the concept is, if you meet 100 people, you did XYZ last year in 2023 in business. Well, if all you did in the first 100 days, you met 100 more people face to face.
Yeah.
Right? Face to face. That's a key thing I got to stress. Not email 100 more, not send 100 more postcards in the mail, right? Face to face, right? Jay, how's it going? Like, what's going on in your life, etc. It's a guarantee that you will do more business. I don't know how much business, right? A lot of it's going to depend on a lot of factors, but I can guarantee you will do more business than you did in 2023, because it is frankly impossible. If you create relationships and connections, it is impossible not to increase your referrals. Possible. And that's really the drive. What we're doing here at Compass is really, we call it high tech, high touch. How do you take technology and create really, really high touches with the people that matter and go from there? And that's really, I think, professionally, everything that I'm doing is all about rehumanizing the real estate business, and hopefully even other businesses beyond real estate, right? Mortgages, attorneys, financial advisors, personal trainers, anyone that's in a relationship-based business where you get referrals or you depend on maintaining your clients. Ask yourself the question, when was the last time I had a human conversation with this person? Not the last time you marketed to them or sent them a newsletter or sent them, a statement in the mail, right? Had a human conversation. And Jay, for any realtors or any service people on the call that are listening, the script is actually as easy as this. Hey, it's Skye, just checking in, seeing how you're doing. That is it. That alone will generate deeper relationships, more referrals, and more business in whatever industry you're in.
What do you think it is about brevity?
What's that? Say it again.
Brevity.
Brevity. A, it is clear. B, it's not about sales. And C, it provides an opportunity for the other person to take the conversation in any direction that they choose to take it. Maybe they're busy and they're like, oh, Skye, I'm doing great. Thanks for calling. Hey, I'm in the middle of something, like, let's try to connect later. Great. Right. So you give the opportunity to the other person, or maybe they'll say, I'm doing, I'm actually struggling. Or maybe they're going to say, oh, it's so weird that you called. I'm debating selling my home or buying a home or, and making an investment, whatever it might be. But you don't know that if you're sitting there sending emails.
Are you allowed to talk about other models out there?
Sure, we can talk anything. Yeah.
What happened? What happened to back in the day when we met and I was running around my camera and the crew going to offices, real estate offices, where we met, the energy. There was something. Now, of course, I'm biased, right? I've lived there myself, but it seemed like there was this energy.
Yeah.
There was so much, and we were all bleeding red. And now it seems like it's totally changed, totally shifted. Why do you think that is? Because
Yeah.
we're all in different places. I don't represent any specific brands.
Sure, sure.
You
Yeah.
now are one of the leaders of a different technology, a different brand
Yeah.
that's doubled since the last time we were together.
Yeah.
So what happened? What do you think why the culture shift?
Yeah. It's a great question.
Without talking specific
Of
shit on a
course.
specific person.
Of
I'm
course.
saying it for myself, just to be,
No, no, no. Yeah. No.
Switzerland.
Every real estate model has awesome things that they do, and every real estate brand has challenges of what they are. And I think what you've seen emerge is you basically have two different models out there in real estate. Model one is the cap model. And underneath the cap model, you're going to put your Keller Williams, your EXPs, your Reals, maybe United, there's some other real estate franchises that are out there. On the other side of the model, you have your full fee brokerages, we call it. This is where, you do pay a split to the brokerage, and this is going to be your Sotheby's, your Coldwell Bankers, typically, Compass, et cetera. So you have these two different models that are emerging. The realization I had after I left the KW model was that you're always paying a split. The difference in the cap model is that you're paying very little split to the brokerage, but you're paying more split out of your pocket to run your business. In the split structure models, right, your Compass, Sotheby's, et cetera, you're paying a much bigger split, but the brokerage is shouldering more of the burden to run your business. So in
Great way
both
to explain it.
models, yeah, so both models work, and a lot of it comes back into, what you are trying to build as a real estate business. So once again, there's no negative on any of the models. It all comes back into what kind of business you're trying to build and where you're trying to go. So if you're trying to build a luxury brand does, the name does carry a lot more weight, right? Your classic Sotheby's, Compass, Douglas Elliman, there's a little more weight carried in the luxury world around a brand name. And we see this with Mercedes or, Tiffany's or Ritz-Carlton, et cetera, right?
In my work, McKinsey or Bain.
Yep, you got it. Exactly. So it's kind of thing where there is something in that luxury sector where brand name does carry a value add, so to speak. But at the end of the day, there's great models everywhere, and there's, a lot of it just goes back into what works for you as a real estate professional, and making sure you have full disclosure. But the big aha I had is that you're always paying a split. The difference is the split coming out of your pocket in the cap model, or is the split going to the brokerage? And both, once again, both work, both have value. It just depends on what kind of business you choose to run.
Do you think there's a natural runoff of people just wanting to become their own brand at some point? Well, as it relates to opening up their own brokerage type thing.
Yeah. I actually think there's a contraction in the market, and I think this current, right now we're recording this January 3rd of 2024. This is a very, very challenging time for real estate brokers and owners, and
Wow.
we at Compass, like there's in the last 3 months, we've had 3 major brokerages join Compass. Through,
Really?
yeah, and Realty Austin, which was the #1 independent brokerage in the city of Austin, Texas. DRP, which was in Southern California, which is a luxury boutique brand. And there's been several other. Launch in Arizona as well was the third one. And what these broker owners are challenged by is that in order for them to compete with either the cap model or the sort of the big behemoths out there, the Compasses, the Sotheby's, et cetera, there really is a shrinking margin of profit when you own your own brokerage, because of the fact that there is such there's so much competition in commission. So if you're paying a split, like if I'm paying a split to Compass, I want to see technology, marketing, brand, beautiful office space, et cetera, right? If you're paying a cap model, well, then you want to see that cap model as small as possible, right? So both are providing pressure on independent broker owners that are out there. So actually, I think we're seeing a contraction. Unless you're in resort areas, that's where you can still be in a very boutique brokerage band and not feel as much pressure from both of those two models we just discussed earlier, if that makes
What
sense.
are the types of behaviors that our individuals are acting out, living out to succeed despite a macro contraction?
Correct. And this is, I know it sounds so ironic. They're actually getting back to the basics of business and real estate, right? It's actually, if you picture the most successful realtors right now are the ones that are not going massively into like, paid lead generation, et cetera. The most successful ones are the ones that are actually elevating what they do as a real estate agent beyond just buying and selling real estate, right? So these are the people that are saying it's almost like a financial advisor where you actually say, I'm an advisor around real estate, and you develop a portfolio of clients. A line I use in a lot of my trainings and coachings at Compass is never use the word past client. Because if you use the word past client, what are they? They're a past client.
Yeah, think about how obvious it is, but very smart.
Obvious. And you think about your financial advisor, right? My financial advisor does not call me a past client.
Like saying my dead grandmother.
Right? Exactly.
Sorry, I mean that's a little
No,
dramatic.
but it's the truth. Like if you mentally call them, oh, that was my past client, they are a past client. And my mentality and the mentality I try to coach and train is that your clients are your clients for life. And every realtor says this, Jay, but they don't live it. And what you need to do is you need to actually live it. And that means if your clients, aka the people that bought and sold in the past, are treated like a client today in the sense of once a year, they're going to get a portfolio review from me, which gives them a breakdown of what the market is. And not, by the way, this is not a mass email to hundreds of people or thousands of people with market stats. This is saying, Jay Doran, you own 123 Main Street in this neighborhood. This is what's sold. And the other thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to check in with you about home maintenance, home improvement, finances, right? Are you looking to pull a line of credit to pay for college? Are you looking to retire soon? What are some things you should do? My favorite listing appointment is a year before we're going to list. Why? Because that client is not my client in the past. They're my client today. And buying and selling real estate is just a very small thing of what I do as a real estate advisor and consultant. And if you take that mindset, these are the agents that are really doubling down into relationships. So take my career. I sold real estate. I started in 2002. So it's actually now, ironically, it's actually coming up on 22 years. But
While you were a teacher.
While I was a teacher,
Oh, wow.
exactly. And I haven't sold a house in, probably 5 years. I haven't sold anything because I took over for Compass and doing everything I'm doing here. But the reality is my clients still feel like clients because I still treat them like clients, right? I still interact with them. I still have a database. And I think the beautiful thing as a real estate professional, if you're out there, your CRM should be your number one tool that you use. You could never post on social media. You could never send an email blast, right? And by email blast, I mean the things that go out to thousands of people. If all you did was interact in a human way with your clients,
Man, this is good.
it's that's all you need to do.
It's full of emotions because when I started Culture Matters, first thing I did when I really committed was get on the phone and call FSBOs and expireds to just talk to human beings. I
That's
did
it.
it at Silva's office. He let me go in there like
Yeah.
a crazy man with the gong, and I would hit the gong when I made appointments. And I'm not joking. People on this podcast I met from those calls. I have
Yeah.
some friends that I've stayed in touch with: Kenneth Bentley, Sean Clark.
Crazy.
The list goes on from 2017,
Yeah.
16, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's exactly what you're advising in my
Exactly.
own way. I mean, so
Yeah.
everyone listening to this is exactly what you need to do.
It's exactly what you need to do. And and the funny thing about it, it's so simple, it's hard.
Why do you think that is?
It's because it is our innate fear of rejection as human beings, right? If you think back, we're going to go back 100,000 years, right? Your brain was created to keep you alive. You probably coach this all the time, right? So what the brain uses to stay alive,
Reading books.
there you go, right? It uses this word anxiety to keep us alive, right? Anxiety was good 100,000
Yeah.
years ago. You hear, you're walking down a trail in the woods and you hear something in the distance and you're like, ooh, anxiety. I'm gonna, flight. I'm gonna flee right now. I'm gonna fight, or I'm gonna freeze. I'm not gonna do anything. And your brain reacts the same way today to emotional distress that it reacts to physical distress. So emotionally, you see the name of a client that you have not talked to in 10 years. What does your brain do? Your brain kicks in anxiety. And as a result, as a realtor, you do one of three things. You flee, you say, oh, I'm not going to call them. They probably hate me. Or, they're probably mad at me because I haven't called them in 10 years or whatever, right? So I'm not
Yeah.
going to do it. You freeze, you're like, oh my God, like, what do I do? What do I say? What are the words? Right? Or you fight and you get pissed off and you blame your brokerage, or you go on social media and you start spouting off about some conflict in the world and the wrongs of the world or whatever it might be, and you fight about something that has nothing to do with what your real goal should be. So it really comes back into, why do people not do this very simple thing, which is connect as a human being to the clients that they've had? It really comes back to just a simple matter of anxiety is your brain's tool to keep you alive. And you need to come up with techniques and tactics to calm your brain down, reassure it that you're safe, and then step into that little bit of uncomfortable feeling. And the other thing you need to do is you need to have consistency. 99% of people that fail at achieving a goal only fail because they don't stay consistent with the small actions that they need to do.
I owe you a huge shout out because I got to talk at the 6 Amers Club
Yeah.
uh, years and years and years ago, made friends, um, relationships from that. In fact, I think Ken Jordan was on there.
Yeah.
He has a
Yeah.
podcast now with Joseph Aradell, and like it's an amazing show. I've been on it. You'd be great for it. Make that intro. And the consistency of that group ended up helping me as an up and coming
Yeah.
culture guy.
Yeah.
So I'm curious what comes to mind. Like that's a testimony for
Yeah.
you
Thank you.
and the
Yeah.
consistency. Does that come from the crew days?
It comes, yeah. I mean, it probably comes even before that a little bit. Obviously, my mom, our upbringing and everything like that. I had a paper route for 3 years. So if you think about this, to this day, I mean, there are people that deliver papers, but back then, papers don't stop being delivered. You got to do it every single morning, rain, snow, school. Did you go out the night before? So I had a paper route as a kid, and it sort of probably that was the beginning of the reinforcement of that consistency. But I would say rowing collegiate crew is probably one of the more transformative things I've ever done in my life. And when you think about consistency, and there's no other sport like rowing to reinforce consistency. I mean, your goal, you're rowing 2,000 meters with 9 other people, 8 rowers, 1 coxswain in a 60-foot boat that's about 12 inches wide with 12-foot oars. If you're not consistent, that thing doesn't go. And the other thing as well is that the intensity of the practices, the trainings, everything that you do, it's unmatched in my opinion in sports, how intense it is. And then for how short of a window of competition that you have. So in crew, if you are not consistent, you are not going to be in a boat. And I think you reinforce that your love for your brothers and, the guys that you row with is one of the things that drives you forward. And I think anyone listening to this podcast or this message that never rowed crew, you don't need to be on the crew team, but you have to find a community that inspires you to be consistent, right? It's really hard to be consistent alone. It's possible, it's very possible, but it's hard to be consistent alone. And if you are trying to do anything and be consistent, find a community to do it in, and you will increase your odds of being consistent, aka achieving your goals, tenfold when you're in a community. Why is that? Because we are communal beings, right? We were not meant to be alone. And when we're alone, that's when our weaknesses can show up. That's when our fears show up. When I was in a boat with 8 other guys, there's inspiration and motivation there to drive me forward. When I'm in a group and I know I'm waking up at 6 a.m. and I know I got to be on a call at 6 a.m. because if I'm not, I'm going to disappoint people. I am definitely waking up, and to be on that call. And that, if you're a Navy SEAL, like your team is the number one thing. You're not going to let your team down, even if you're in deadly fire, right? Whatever it might be, you need to find a community of people that are all connected and pursuing the same goals or similar goals, or can support you in whatever pursuit of your goals. And I think that's this missing thing, this time of year, right? It's January 3rd. Like, well, you go into a gym today and that gym is packed right now. And I guarantee by January 15th, you'll be back to, it'll be back to normal. And the reason why is because there's no community. People aren't joining a community where other people care about them, support them, inspire them to actually continue going to the gym or pursuing their goals.
That brings me to another juncture is that I don't go to the gym. I have a trainer, right? So
Perfect.
there's a group engagement. That's one medium. And then there's the individual. So on the coaching side,
That's
how
right.
do they complement? I'm not making an argument that it's the trainer negates the group because I think binaries tend to, right, create
It,
contradictions.
it's still
So
a
it's not an
community.
either or.
Yeah. But Jay, you're still a community. Two people is
What
a
do you
community.
think?
Do you know what I mean? Two people is a community. There is
There's
community
a relationship.
in that relationship, right? Let's picture if your trainer sent you a video and said, "Here, I'm going to send you a video to do these trainings on video." You might do them, but there's a good chance you're not, right? You're going to find something to do beyond that video. But if your trainer's like, "Hey, meet me at the gym at 6 a.m. and I'm going to be there," there's a very good chance you're going to meet him at the gym. That's a community right there. Now, what would make it even stronger, you have a partnership or a competition with a friend of yours who are both then meeting the trainer. Now you have a real, two people now makes it even tighter, right? So that's the kind of thing when you think about anything you're trying to do or achieve, a community is more than one person. So two people can form a community, you know, three people.
I'll give Michael Christensen a shout out because he listens to the podcast.
Nice.
Thank you, brother. I want your thoughts on this quote. Responsibility is a call to individuality, and accountability enforces it.
Yeah.
What do you think?
It makes me think of the word ownership. I think what it's really, you could sum that quote up in one word, which is ownership. Responsibility, when you have responsibility and you take ownership of it, that's when it's one of those things that I always assume this idea that everything is my responsibility, aka ownership, right? And it's not to say that I'm going to fall, if someone doesn't do something and they're, in my team or underneath me or whatever it might be, that it's like, I'm going to fall on the sword and say everything's my fault, but always drive at ownership. any problem you have is almost always, if you're a leader out there, it's almost always a leadership problem, or an ownership problem. That you are not owning the situation in some way. Something goes wrong.
Yeah.
It's not the person on your team's fault. It's actually your fault for not creating a system to make sure that wouldn't go wrong. Or it's your fault for not communicating the standard, or it's your fault for not meeting with your team member to make sure they're properly educated, et cetera. Now, once again, this is not meant to be a comment. You don't need to go and shame yourself and say, I'm a horrible person because my team member messed up and ruined this deal. But what it is, it's a saying, it's sort of a mindset that whatever happens, it's a good thing. And Jocko Willenick, probably, one of my favorite motivational persons. He has this video clip from a podcast he did, and it's called Good. And, basically it's him recalling these situations. And in the Navy SEALs, anytime something happened, they would say the word good. And if you're a leader out there and you're going through some challenges, I challenge you to say the word good and find why what's happening is a good thing, right? Someone messed up a transaction and they didn't, get a document they should have gotten. Good. It reveals a flaw in our system to make sure that never happens again. My team member, didn't reach out to the people he should have reached out to and lost the transaction. Good. I need to make sure my standards are conveyed and I provide a little more accountability to make sure that doesn't happen again. I could go on and on, but as a leader, you always want to take any situation that happens, and even good or bad, and whatever happens, you want to say the word good. And from there, you can make adjustments, changes. And I think it's a concept that this is a really, really great sort of mindset that I use, Jay, is that life is like a mountain with no top, right? So if you imagine, a lot of people imagine, oh, I'm going to get to the top of the mountain. There is no top of the mountain in life. All it is every time you get to where you think the top is, there's another peak and another peak. And I'm sure you have a lot of books that.
No, it just made me think of Sisyphus, Camus, with the boulder.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You're the history guy.
Yeah. And I think the key thing is a lot of people base their happiness on getting to the top.
Yeah. What if Sisyphus was happy? That was Camus.
That's right. That's right. What if he was
Or I imagine him happy. I mean,
oh my God, I'm pushing
imagine Sisyphus happy.
Yeah, that's such a great mindset shift, isn't it?
Rebel? I don't know.
Yeah.
I have a question about, because I could have framed this better in the intro. You sold real estate from, like you said, 2002, left teaching 3 years in, called banker, ended up Keller, now running hugely Compass. But you sold houses and you developed a culture through your clients, through your teammates, your employees, to actually many houses, many houses or so. So you're a practitioner of these ideas. So my question is, what was the runway to go from obscurity to recognition?
Yeah.
How long did that take? What would that look like, that process?
The reality is it'll look, the timeline is different for every people depending upon what it is you're investing in and what you're doing. I think the thing that will be the same for every person though is you identify what it is you do and then you do it consistently. I hate to bring that topic back up, but for me and my team, we were called the Real Estate with Heart team. And when I was a teacher, what did I do? I practiced heart in everything I did. What do I do here at Compass? I lead with my heart, right? I lead with caring. And everything that I've done in my life has always been about providing caring and providing, love in essence to everyone that I come across with, in the hope that will have an impact on them and on their life and on their performance. There are people, from obscurity to recognition. There are people that can go on social media probably. And I think a lot of it goes back into how you define recognition, right? Is recognition just people looking at you, or is recognition creating impact in people's lives? And, the beautiful thing about being in my position here at Compass is I can create impact. Even like we have 30,000 agents, 2,000 employees or so. And I always think to myself, I want to create impact actually on 200,000 people. And when I say that, what that means is I want to impact people so much that their kids, their spouse, their parents, their siblings, the people around them actually feel the impact. So I don't think I want to impact 30,000 people. I want to impact 250,000 people, right? I want to impact beyond the 30. Their clients. I mean, if you start extrapolating it out, it's almost like I want to have an impact on 1 million people, and I'll never know that. They'll never know me. But if I teach someone how to have a healthy routine in the morning, and then all of a sudden they wake up and instead of yelling at their kids, they're waking up and illustrating to their kids how to be calm and measured and healthy, that may have ripple impacts. Who knows where it's going to go? So I think a lot of it comes back into not caring about the result, right? It's not caring about the result. It's caring about the action in the moment and caring about how I'm going to create impact today in this moment with this person that's sitting in front of me.
On that note, in closing, someone wants to connect with you.
Yeah.
In person. You're one of their 100 people. Fastest way most to get into on your radar.
Probably my Instagram account would be the easiest to give everyone, right? So it's at Skye, Skye Michiels, which is spelled a little differently. It's Michiels. That's my Instagram account. My email at Compass, you could use Skye, Skye @compass.com. That's probably the second best way. And I'll give you even my cell phone number. It's 215-266-4643. And if anyone on this call is listening and you need help, you need support, you need advice, or you just want to chat, I would love to be connected to you. And I'd love to continue, once again, creating human connection, human relationships. And I think in this world of technology and AI and all this stuff and all the freneticness that we're surrounded by, I challenge everyone that's listening to do the simple thing of rehumanizing your life and your business by connecting with yourself and connecting with the people that you know.
Skye, appreciate your culture. Appreciate you, brother. Please, if you're listening to this, share this episode out. Review. Please drop a review what you thought of this episode of the show and the Culture Matters podcast. And we will see you next time on the Culture Matters podcast. Thank you, brother.
Thank you, man. It was great.